two things happened. I made my matcha with oat milk and I'm actually really liking it, which is surprising because usually I don't like oat milk. So you could call this a success. Second, I got my hair cut, and while this is not a middle part exactly, she did part it down the middle and I kind of undid that. I hate middle parts on myself, and I went so far as to get like very subtle curtain bangs. Anyway, hi, hello, I'm Steph. If you don't know me, I'm Steph, and I run this channel. You could say I run this channel. I haven't filmed for a while and I've really lost my touch. Did I ever have it? We are doing a reading vlog. This is a reading vlog because I've said it a few times. I'm actually going to see my family. Probably by the time you've seen this, I have seen my family. And I know that I'm not going to read very much this month. I do plan to have a 24-hour readathon at the end of the month, probably. I will announce that if that's happening. But I just know myself. I know how I am when I travel. I get really distracted and I just don't read. It just doesn't work out for me. But weirdly, graphic novels work really well for me, especially on the plane. And so I thought to myself, you know, you have like 6 unread graphic novels on your shelf right now. Why not just read them all this month and feel good? Graphic novels, the ones that I pick up anyway, always seem to just like make me feel good. Feel good, heartwarming, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to take you through the 5 that I plan on reading, and I'm going to take you in order of what I plan on doing this month. Organization. So the first graphic novel that I plan to get through is The Magic Fish. And this is supposed to be a coming out story, and it's supposed to use fairy tales as its medium of telling this story. So I think it goes back and forth between the real world and fairy tales. And these fairy tales are supposed to be used as a way that our main character and his mother communicate to one another. And so I'm really looking forward to this one. Funny enough, this is the one that's been on my TBR or my shelf the shortest amount of time, but it is the one that I am most anticipating currently. So that's why I'm gonna read this one first. It's also relatively short. So then on the second leg of my trip, which is a much longer plane ride, I plan to read On a Sunbeam. Now this one has been on my TBR for a while. It's been on my shelf for a while, and I'm just intimidated by it because it's 500 pages. Yeah, it's like 530 something pages. And I don't know, I just am intimidated by that. Even though I get through graphic novels pretty quickly, I feel like I'm not gonna get through this quickly, so it's intimidating me when my brain's already like, oh, you're not gonna read that much this month. Even though in reality, it doesn't matter how much I read every month. You know what I'm saying? Also, I'm very excited about this one because this is a second chance romance and it's set in space. If you know anything about me, you know that I love fluffy books in space. It's a thing. It just became a thing in my life because of The Long Way to a Smaller Planet, which I read like 4 or 5 years ago. And ever since then, I've always loved fluffy space stories. Really weird, but that's just my thing, and I feel like this is going to give that to me. I know there is a found family aspect in here. I know that there's like a cool aspect of them rebuilding certain things on different planets. I think it's kind of like a construction crew. I think that'll be interesting. It actually reminds me a lot of The Long Way to a Smaller Planet when I think about like the overall concept of it. Kind of reminds me of that. So I'm really looking forward to this. Then I want to read Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. My partner actually gifted this to me over a year ago, and I should have read it then and I didn't, so I'm gonna read it now. It is a sapphic romance. Laura Dean keeps breaking up with our main character Freddie, and Freddie is kind of like, what the fuck, dude? So I'm excited about this one because I do feel like it's gonna be a feel-good romance, kind of like in the vein of Heartstopper, you know, which I love Heartstopper. I can't wait for volume 4. That would be on here too if I were willing to get the UK copy. Then I want to read Check Please, which happens to be the one that I have volume 2 for. And I actually think I'm gonna love this, but I've never read a sports romance before, so I don't know if I like sports romances, but I feel like when things are in graphic novel form, for whatever reason, I'm just like fine with it. I'm not really sure why. Usually in graphic novel forms, tropes that bother me in books normally don't bother me in graphic novels. Maybe that's because I can obviously see what's happening on the page and what's happening between the characters, whereas in a book I'm visualizing it myself and maybe I just have trouble visualizing certain things. Is anybody else like this? I don't know. But this is a sports romance. Our main character, I'm already forgetting his name, Biddy. And Biddy is an influencer. He also is joining the hockey team, but I believe in the past he was on a co-ed hockey team and now he's on an all-boys hockey team, and he starts to have a crush on Jack, who I think is one of the star players on the hockey team. This will be cute, I think. And then lastly, I actually have another Tillie Walden book, and that's Are You Listening? This one I didn't know much about when I got it. There's a cat on it, and I like Tillie Walden's art style, but it's supposed to be a magical road trip through a surreal landscape with 2 characters and 1 special cat who will break your heart. That's probably why I got this. So I was just reading the synopsis for this, and usually I pick up fluffy graphic novels, but this one seems like it's going to be a little more hard-hitting because it says this beautifully haunting story of friendship, loss, heartbreak, and traumatic revelation about sexual assault culminates in an exquisite example of human connection. I must have picked this up off of a recommendation and I'm just not remembering it currently, or maybe I just picked it up because I was in the mood for that. Sometimes I get like that at the bookstore. I'm in a mood and I'll find something that fits that mood at that time. Sometimes I do that. But yeah, I think this will be the one that I ended on. Maybe I'll switch it up, I don't really know. Dry shampoo in my hair and it's just like everywhere because it's for brown hair, so it has like brown in it. I don't know, it's just I'm just struggling. It's a real struggle just being me. I'm back from my first trip from seeing my family in Northern California, and then on Friday morning we leave to go see more family in Louisiana. That's when I will be reading on a Sunbeam, but I finished The Magic Fish and I loved it so much. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved the art style so much, but more so I loved the characters and the way that the story was told. So I think I said in the beginning that this is supposed to be told from both the real life perspective of the story, but also through fairy tales. And these fairy tales are utilized as a way for the main character to be able to talk to his mom. Tien's mom and dad are actually refugees from Vietnam, and you see some flashbacks from the mom's perspective. So the story goes back and forth between the two, and it especially goes into the fairy tales when one of the characters, whether it's Tien or the mother, is struggling with something difficult. Also, these fairy tales are utilized as a way to help Tien's mother learn how to speak English better, so they read out loud to one another. And it's also interesting because these fairy tales are used as a form of communication. Even though they're reading each other fairy tales out of a book, they're using specific fairy tales to kind of communicate something that's going on in their own lives. And for Tien, our main character, he's struggling with trying to tell his parents that he's gay, but not knowing the right words or language to communicate with his parents that he is gay. At the same time, his mom is trying to use stories to be able to let him know what she's going through and what she's thinking and her acceptance of him. One of the things I really loved about this story in general is that the author has a note at the end that sort of expresses why the story is so important and why the story was important to be told in fairy tale format. So the author says, I set out to tell a very small story, one of the odd challenges of writing a story about characters living within any social margins in the gravity of the marginalization itself. It is such a dense thing, seeming to insist that all the pieces of the story should orbit around it. Immigrant stories are like this. And then the last paragraph says, and so I set out to tell a very small story about a boy and his mother figuring out how to express love without the benefits of an appropriate vernacular, a set of vocabulary words in a syllabus or a common language to facilitate their dialogue. I wanted to explore how stories can serve both as an escape and as an anchor for us in our real lives. And maybe for at least one story, decenter the gravity of marginalization to tell a story about one of the little pieces that orbits around it. So I love this, and I think that it will be a story that I visit over and over again. Randomly, because I was still in the mood to read, I did start on a Sunbeam. I'm not far. I'm only 26 pages in, so I'm here. I think this is chapter 2. Yeah, and I love it already. I like the main character. She's really feisty, and you're already seeing a found family aspect, and you know that the main character has been through something, so I think this is going to be told in past and present. I usually love stories like that, so I'm excited to find out the overarching story that got our main character Mia onto this ship and making the decisions that she's made, because it's clear she's been through something that she's not talking about. I'm back home. I'm so tired. I knew that social interaction was gonna knock me out. That being said though, I finished on a Sunbeam. It was so cute. No one actually told me this was like The Long Way to a Smaller Planet, but this definitely is reminiscent of The Long Way to a Smaller Planet. So if that is one of your favorite science fiction books like me and you like graphic novels, please pick this up. And funny enough, something I didn't even notice is that Becky Chambers blurbs this book. So she said, On a Sunbeam strikes a magical balance between trippy and tangible, heartbreaking and hilarious. It is so easy to curl up in the art and lose myself in the story. Martha Wells also blurbed this. On a Sunbeam is a slow burn romance and a found family space opera adventure with an engaging cast of characters and a gloriously strange setting that is brilliantly original. I enjoyed every bit of it. And you know what? I agree, Martha. I'm on the same page as you, Martha. Because Martha, this was excellent. No, but seriously, I loved every second of this. And I think that this is a graphic novel that you could, as Becky Chambers said, curl up and read it in one sitting and get lost in it. But if you were like me, I actually read this over the span of a week and a half. And I really enjoyed consuming it that way too. But I feel like when I reread this, because I'm absolutely gonna reread it, I would curl up and just read it in one sitting, just cause. It has beautiful art. It has beautiful sapphic relationships. It has a lot of representation. I think that this is very interesting because it doesn't rely on the space aspects of it. It's just set in space, and I love that. That's my type of sci-fi. That's probably why I really love The Long Way to a Smaller Planet, because I like the idea of space, but I don't understand space. And above everything else, I love found family. Found family is probably my favorite trope of all time. I think it's because found family usually gives you character dynamics and relationships that you can latch onto really easily if you are a character-driven reader, which I think that I at times can be 50-50 between plot and character-driven, but if I have to choose one or the other, I'll probably be fine if the plot is slow and there are really good character dynamics and interesting relationships. And like I said at the start, there's a second chance romance in here, so if that's a trope that you love, you're gonna get that. I just loved this. I loved it so much. It's safe to say that I'm really excited to read the second Tillie Walden book that I picked up that I didn't know why I picked up. For now, I'm gonna read Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, and I'm gonna try to read this without falling asleep right now, even though it's only like 3 in the afternoon. I finished. I did want to say trigger warnings for abortion, which I didn't know was going to be a thing going into this, but I also haven't actively looked at reviews. But if you needed to know that, it's trigger warnings for abortion and a pretty manipulative and verbally abusive relationship, although it leans more on the side of just manipulation. But yeah, you see that a lot with the main relationship in here. And I haven't seen that in a teen graphic novel, let alone a teen book, very often. And I think it's really important that teens understand what manipulative relationships look like. So while I did really enjoy this, and I did like the fact that it was talking about a topic like that, I would argue that it's not really fully addressed well. I don't know if it's ever called out by name that there's a lot of manipulation happening. Sorry, I had to sit up because my arm was hurting. Like I said, I did really like this. I just wish Laura Dean was challenged more in her behavior. But yeah, now I'm thinking about like reading this again and then reading In the Dream House, because I loved In the Dream House. That is such an important read. It's also beautifully told. That being said, I didn't actually know that that was gonna be such a heavy-hitting book, I guess. So I think I'm gonna read Check Please, because it seems like the more lighthearted of the 2 books that I have left. And if I like this one, I'll probably just read the second one today too. The gate that everybody goes in and out of to get to different apartments, there's 2 sides, but one of the gates to get in and out of my apartment complex is literally right in front of this window, and somebody just came through it. We've had a bunch of new people move in, so I'm not used to a lot of people going in and out of that door, but now they just go in and out of it all the time. If you ever hear slamming in my video, it's that gate. Everybody slams the gate. Anyway, I'm gonna go read Check Please. It's also hot as hell in this house. I need to go do something about that. The elegance, the fashion. Hi, good morning. I do this because I hate when my hair gets in my face when I'm doing my skincare, but also I hate after I have my skincare on and my face is kind of like tacky still from all of the sunscreen. If my hair gets in it, I hate it. So I'm reading Check Please right now. I think I'm about 100 pages into it, and I'm not really liking this very much. I think it's the sports element to it that I'm not loving, but I'm gonna keep reading, obviously. I think I have a little over 100 pages left of this, but yeah, I don't know. How funny, the one that I have 2 volumes of, thinking I was gonna love it. I don't know. It could have been because I was really tired yesterday and I was developing a headache in the middle of reading it. Could very much be what the problem was. finished. I liked it. It's not a new favorite for sure. And it's definitely the hockey terminology and like the sports in general. I just don't really care about sports. So that did take away from the story for me. But the last half or quarter or like half of this was really good and fun, and I liked it. But yeah, this is basically about Biddy. This is Biddy, and he joins his college hockey team even though he in the past was a figure skater, and it just is going through his college life and being on a sports team and the different personalities of all of these guys, and kind of having a crush on a straight guy named Jack. That's Jack. And yeah, it's kind of like a slice of life, his college experience, and it's pretty funny, heartwarming. He loves to bake, and so that's like his thing. He bakes pies a lot and is just really sweet. But yeah, there's some funny moments in it, but it is very sports heavy. Like, you hear a lot about the games and you hear a lot of the terminology. So I think if you like sports romances, and if you like kind of a slow burn romance, and you like sports in general, specifically like sports culture, you'll probably really enjoy this because it leans on that a lot. Actually, in the back of this, there's extra comics, and part of these extra comics is hockey shit with Ransom and Holster. So it's this, and basically they define terminology and give you examples of it, almost like Urban Dictionary. And it's really funny because I actually love these two characters. They're like best friends in this comic, and they're really funny, and I like them. So it was cool to see their extra comics where they're defining things for you, which I think is really helpful if you don't know anything about hockey. So I learned about some of the terminology that I was very unfamiliar with. But yeah, I just don't care that much about sports. I like playing sports, but I've never been a big fan of watching sports in any capacity. So I'll definitely read the next one, but this isn't like a new favorite. I don't know if I would reread this, and according to the reviews online, people loved this one and the next volume is not as good. So that's really interesting as somebody who, like, I think I'm leaning towards a 3 stars for this. So I don't know what my experience for volume 2 is going to be like. I don't think I'm going to read it right now though. I really want to move on to the other Tillie Walden book, the Are You Listening? This one, which is more hard-hitting. I want to read it today, but I have a few videos to film, so I don't know if I'll get to this today, but I will tomorrow, and then we'll wrap this up. So yesterday I ended up going to the Studio Ghibli reading sprints on Naomi's channel, and I ended up starting and finishing Are You Listening by Tillie Walden, and I think I'm gonna give this a 3.5 and probably round it up to a 4 stars. I really enjoyed a lot of aspects of this graphic novel, but I think my biggest complaint is that I wish it were longer so that it could kind of dive into the things that it started to talk about in here. I can also see this being 2 parts, so I haven't actually looked into that. Maybe I'll do that after I film this update. But basically the story follows Bee and Lou, and in the beginning of this graphic novel they are both running away from something. So by chance they end up going on a road trip together, and on that road trip they find a cat. But somebody is looking for this cat and they're just trying to return it to its owner, and this is where and why I think that this story would benefit from being longer. There's a magical realism element to this book that I feel like just happened really quickly and was explained really quickly, and by the end of that explanation I didn't really understand it. So I feel like it would have benefited from more pages, for more of the story if that was fleshed out a little bit more. And then the ending itself is open-ended, which doesn't necessarily bother me, but there was something that was revealed in this book that it did kind of bother me, that this was such an open-ended book, but I get it at the same time. I also wanted to let you know that there is trigger warnings for sexual assaults in here. One of the characters is dealing with the aftermath of a sexual assault and discusses it, and that's another reason why I wish this were longer and why the ending wasn't open-ended. I don't necessarily mean that I don't want it to be open-ended, but the way that this ended was a little too open. And going back to the trigger warning of sexual assault, I do think that the conversation that happened regarding the sexual assault was really well done, and I was appreciative of it. The thing about Tilly Walden is I really love her art style. It just sucks me in. I definitely think this is worth the read. So I'm gonna recap what I read and the star ratings that I gave them, and then I'm gonna rank them for you because why not? Ranking things is fun. So the first graphic novel that I read was The Magic Fish. I gave this 5 stars. I then read On a Sunbeam, and I gave this 5 stars. I then read Laura Dinky's Breaking Up With Me, and I think I originally said that I would give this 4 stars, but I actually think that it's more of a 3 stars. The more that I thought about it, the more that I realized that I wasn't exactly super attached to any of the characters, and while I think this is an important read, I do think that things weren't challenged enough in this book, like I discussed before about the toxic relationship. So I would have liked to see more challenging of the relationship, but I do think that this is an important read nonetheless. I then read Check Please, which I gave 3 stars. I liked the second half more than the first half, and if you are somebody who doesn't love sports, just know that this has a lot of sports references in it. So this is a whole, like, it's a me thing, not this book thing, because it is very cute and it's funny at times, but it's very like jock bro talk. So if you like that, you'll probably like this. And then of course, Are You Listening was the last one that I just read, and I gave this 3.5 stars. I'm curious if y'all can guess what my ranking is gonna be. So if you can guess, put it in the comments below. But basically, this is my ranking. And if we're being honest, these two are probably tied. They could switch and I would still be happy because they were truly my favorite of the 5 that I read. So anyway, I had a really fun time reading these graphic novels. If you have any suggestions down below for graphic novels that you think I would like, definitely let me know. But that's it from me. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.